My job tried to charge me for personal calls on my work phone even though I had an unlimited plan.
So I need to preface this by saying this happened a long time ago. Like back when cell phone plans had minutes. I was working as a contractor in a hospital for a medical supply company. I was in a team lead kind of role in a small department, supervising about 20 people total. Part of my job description was to carry around a departmental cell phone at all times, even though I was an hourly employee. Kind of a bogus deal, but whatever. Employees would call me whenever, 24/7 for troubleshooting or if they were calling in sick. I never got paid for these phone calls, but to me at the time it wasn't a big deal. This particular area was also in the mountains, and I didn't always get the greatest reception with my T-Mobile phone. I got great reception with my work phone, so every once in a while I'd use it for personal use.
After about a year of this, I get an email from my boss's secretary asking me to pay for each of the calls I made. I said sure, send me the phone records. After that, I went through the phone records over the past year and saw I'd used it maybe 10% of the time for personal calls. After adding everything up, I emailed her back. I added everything up, and turns out I owe you guys X amount of dollars for my personal calls. Technically, I'm an hourly employee, so I should be getting overtime each time I pick up the phone for work purposes. Will we just subtract the difference for all those hours owed? I never heard back. I didn't push it and they didn't either.
I'd have sent them an invoice after that.
A lot of us do things like this and it blows me away when they try to nitpick, like I get paid gas money for traveling between locations. Sometimes it's a 2-minute drive, sometimes it's 45 minutes. If I do a lot of traveling I will record it, but if it's a couple short drives per month I won't even bother. If I had submitted these trips it probably adds up to $100 or $2 per year. If I did something to rip off the company, would they consider this? Would they consider all the times I've worked off the clock after hours just trying to finish something real quick or get something set up for the next week real quick?
You should have insisted that they pay you for your hours and then write them a check of the difference. Talk about the freeloaders.
I don't understand this mentality from your, hopefully, former employer. It is usually a given that you'll be using the phone to occasionally make personal calls. While not encouraged, it is understood. Only time I got harassed was in the military. When minutes and long distance were a huge deal. I'd turned in a cell phone I was issued to my supply guy. Got a receipt after turning it in. Got a call from the major who issued me the phone many months later asking WTF all these calls to Louisiana were about. Never been. But the guy the first turned the phone into at supply? Louisiana. Faxed a copy of the receipt over and asked the good major to call me back with any questions. Supply guy. You boss. Glad you got busted down.
Had the same problem with the company phone. I answered my phone outside work times, no problem. Suddenly got an amount subtracted for personal calls, which is illegal where I live by the way. Fine. After that I turned off my work phone after work. And got asked about why I didn't answer my phone after work hours. I call it stepping over dollars to collect dimes.
About 30 years ago I worked in a company that was having financial issues. I learned how serious when one day I was called into my manager's office and she asked me who I called at 123-456-7890. I recognized the number. My mother's. I returned a call to her about something. What was really strange is that it was a local call. I was friendly with my manager and asked if she wanted a quarter. She just rolled her eyes and sighed something about management. I was not the only sinner she saw that day. The company had a major restructuring not long after.
Lol. They knew they would have to start paying you for the overtime, and maybe all the way back to when you were hired.
I used my work phone for a month when my personal phone broke. Got a call from my GM saying I use 6 gigs of data. I'm thinking great. 6 gigs in a month is like half of what I normally use, so I must be doing great data-wise. Nope. Company offers 2 gigs per tech. It's $50 a month for unlimited. Fine, I'll get the unlimited. I hotspot my personal phone to my work phone all day long. My personal data usage has gone down so much. Before cell phones, I was a contractor at a large company. Once a month each contractor was handed a list of calls made from their phone. We had to mark the calls that were personal and reimburse them. In person. We were in a satellite building, so there was only a cashier on site for 3 hours each week. At 1 p.m. on the first Tuesday after the bills came out, there would be a long line of contractors, billing at $50 or more an hour, waiting to hand over checks for $2 or $3, since the cashier closed before processing everyone. So we'd be back at 10 a.m. Wednesday and often 3 p.m. on Friday. I'd like to say that someone figured out that it cost them more to process all these checks than they were worth. But no. A couple of managers even kept track of how much time people spent on the phone and then demanded an adjustment to the bill. In the early 2000s, the IRS decided that personal use of employer-provided cell phones counted as a taxable benefit. So employers had to start cracking down on that. They were fining not just the employees but employers as well. Mine decided to take away the phones and give us a monthly stipend, taxed, to defray the cost of our own personal phones. Because otherwise it was going to be a bookkeeping nightmare. So depending on exactly when this was, it might have been Thai IRS fault, not your employer's bean counters.
I salute you, that was a genius retort.
Penny wise, pound foolish. I once worked in a consulting role that required me to travel around. The company also had some strict cost-saving measures, like no business class, regardless of the flight time, cheapest hotel, regardless of distance, just super dumb stuff, all about the face value, but not the overall impact. I had a client that required me to stay at a hotel, and the cheapest one was substantially further away than the closer one to the office, but $30 per night less. The pencil pushers insisted I stick to policy, despite the additional travel time. The cost of transportation wound up costing them an additional $50 per day, which is basically $20 more a day than if I stayed closer, plus the extra 30 to 40 minutes stuck commuting. So many stories in this subreddit of bean counters only considering one side of the equation. When making a financial decision, you should always ask 2 questions. 1. What is the cost of doing this? 2. What is the cost of not doing this? I hate reading stories like this where a person thinks they won when, in reality, it's quite likely the person was misclassified as a contractor, definitely owed on-call pay on top of wages for all calls, and clearly taken advantage of by the company. Why end it with, sure I owe you $10 but you owe me several $1,000s? Benefits and repercussions of violating state and federal labor laws to their advantage and your loss. Why not approach state and federal labor boards about the situation and the pay you're rightfully owed? That's sticking it to them. If they want to nitpick, turnabout is fair play, and that certainly includes leveraging your legal resources. Sorry op. Please don't let them victimize you further. Before cell phones, each worker had a landline desk phone. To make a personal call, you dial a code, then your employee ID number. The cost of the call is deducted from your pay. Employer has a phone switch. Of course.
You should post this over on r/AndyWork. Well played.
Similar era, when data was unlimited and there was a monthly limit to texts and minutes. Except I never have had a company phone. Using my personal phone, I sometimes got up to the limit, or over, on calls due to work. Fortunately, Work agreed to pay for a family plan upgrade to allow a few numbers to be added as unlimited minutes. I think I still had the bonus from work when I changed plans later. I live in the Netherlands, but was stationed on a project in Brussels, Belgium. We had a fixed allowance for food when working on the project, but we were also paid for overtime. This project needed a lot of overtime. It needed one phone call with my manager and HR to convince them that they would not complain about expense reports for restaurant food, and we would not ask to pay for overtime. Brussels has some very nice and expensive restaurants. Good times.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.